You Booked It, episode 79. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainment professionals 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to have a successful entertainment career. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainment professionals. We're here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community, where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app, where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating, and review. And now, let's do this. All right, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Chelsea Dee. Are you ready for this, Chelsea?
I am indeed, Dan. Let's do it.
All right. Chelsea hails from good old England. She started dancing at the age of 2, later studying at the Hammond School in Chester and gaining her national diploma in dance. She started her professional career at 19 on cruise ships and within a year moved to Portugal to work at Casino Estoril. She then went back on the high seas, working for Celebrity Cruise Lines as dance captain and aerialist for 4 years. In 2013, Chelsea made her way to Las Vegas and has been there ever since. She has been freelancing for many entertainment companies in Sin City over the years and was also part of the dance team for the AFL Las Vegas Outlaws. She danced in Scott Bradley's Postmodern Jukebox and before COVID was a swing dancer at Vegas The Show. She also loves fitness and is a teacher at True Fusion Summerlin. Chelsea, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps, who you are, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Chelsea Dee. My stage name would probably be Chelsea Dee Robinson. I'm now married, so it would be Chelsea Dee DeLong, but I just go by Chelsea Dee normally. I've been here in Las Vegas for 7 years. As you said, I came all the way from good old England, the northwest of England, somewhere between Manchester and Liverpool, for anybody that knows England that's listening to this. I trained at the Hammond School in Chester for 3 years, from 16 to 19. It was a vocational college. So we did Monday to Friday, basically 9 till 5, just pure dance. I did some academic, but all I did was just eat, sleep, breathe, and dance every single day. And then from there, I went on to my first cruise ship. It was actually Costa Cruise Lines. I worked on one of the smaller ships that they have. Did that for about 9 months. And from there, I made a contact and was able to put my feet back on land. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try a land contract. Went to Portugal. From there, made a connection that got me to Celebrity. Did Celebrity for 4 years. I was dance captain for a few contracts and got to do aerial. So I actually was part of a aerial trapeze act. Either 4 girls or 2 girls and 2 boys, and we would do an 8-minute act during one of the shows. So I got free training for that. That was amazing to be able to gain that as a skill, being a dancer. And then from there, whilst I was doing celebrity cruises, I'd actually been introduced to Natalie Brown, which you've already had on doing a podcast. And she has been one of the many people that had always told me, you need to come to Vegas. You need to come to Vegas. And at the time, I didn't know what Vegas was at all. I was a British dancer on an American cruise line working with all these people. And I was like, what's Vegas? What's Las Vegas?
Yeah.
And then it's not until I got older and I discovered it. And I was like, okay. And I'd met my now husband at the time on one of our last ships. And I decided, you know what? Let's do this. We decided it was going to be serious. We were going to do we did the long distance thing for a while. And then I looked into getting an O1 visa There's many visas out there for people to make it into the States. A lot of people were like, let's just get married, just get married. But I was like, I don't know him well enough to just be like, let's go. And I didn't want to ride all my career on making a relationship work. So I'd researched the O1 visa and found that I could get it for 3 years. And I was like, this is the smarter way to do it and get my feet into the US. It was a struggle getting the visa. I'm not going to say it was an easy ride. It was hard, but I did it, got the O1 visa, moved to the States, lived in Michigan for about 2 months, as that's where my husband is from. And then we decided, where are we going to move to? Because I couldn't perform in Michigan. And I knew New York was probably not an option for me as I don't sing. So I was like, it's probably not where I'm meant to be. We had friends in Vegas already. It was like, let's try Vegas. Let's just go. Let's see what happens. So we made the cross country drive, packed the car up, moved over, came to Vegas. Both didn't have any work. We just had an apartment, then adopted a dog within a week of being here. Was just trying to figure it out. And yep, we're still here now. We now have a home out here. We now have 2 dogs. And, before COVID, we both had full-time jobs. So that's my life in a nutshell, I guess.
Wonderful. I love it. And, throughout your recap of your career, I love a couple of things that you brought up. One, you said, well, I went and did this job and then I made a connection and then I went and did this and then I made a connection and I went and did this. And I think that is so massively important for everyone listening, especially if you're new to this industry, to pay attention to, because you might have this grand scheme of what you want in your career. And you've been thinking about it since you were, I don't know, in diapers. But it's good to have that plan, sure. But you still have to always keep your eyes open to opportunity. And when things come at you and say, how does this fit in to my life, my plan? Can I work with this? Is this something I can do with this? Because if you keep yourself too blinded to just being so focused on your plan and just ignoring what's around you in the moment, there's so much you can potentially miss out on.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I went to college at the time, the course was either classical ballet or musical theater. And from being so young, as does every young dancer, like they want to be a ballerina. That's what they aspire to be. And I wanted to be a ballerina. So when I got into college, I was doing the classical course. And as much growing up, I did do tap, I did do jazz, modern, I did all the things. I just wanted to do ballet. But when I got to college, 3 months in, honestly, I did say to my mom, I was like, I miss being cheesy. I miss doing jazz hands. I miss doing all the showy stuff. As much as ballet will always have my heart, because that's where I started, like as much as it will, but I just loved to perform. So I switched courses. And honestly, it was probably the best thing I ever did, because now I feel like I'm pretty versatile and an all-round dancer. But if I hadn't have done that, then my career would have gone in a completely different direction to what it is now, and I wouldn't have done all the things that I have now. So it's and then made the connections. And it's true, I was saying to my husband, talking about this, that as much as your talent and your training and everything that goes into you wanting to be a dancer, the connections is 50%, if not more, of this career in this industry, which I feel like they don't necessarily teach you that at college. They're all about, you need to have all this technique, you need to do this. And I'm not saying technique should be displaced at all, but they don't teach you that, make sure you're friendly with everybody. When there's someone that you connect with, keep in touch, because you don't know who that person is or who they know. And if they can't do a job, they might be like, well, I can't do the gig, but I have a friend that might be available.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's crazy.
Yep. And I like you said, stay in touch, keep in touch. And you know what I found actually is being true throughout my entire career with different performers is that you will create these fantastic relationships with different people throughout different shows and different whatevers that you're doing throughout your career. And I think us as entertainers have this fantastic ability on the whole to develop these great, strong relationships, but then they don't necessarily need loads and loads and loads of maintenance throughout your entire life. You've had that connection in your life. That was a real thing. you enjoyed each other's company, you respect each other's talents, and then you might disappear or you guys both do your own thing for the next 5 years, decade.
Yep.
But
Mm-hmm.
at any time, you can reconnect in a new city. You could give them a call, and everyone just can pick up right where it left off because they have established that relationship in the past, and you didn't have to be calling them all the time and making
No,
sure that they know
that's
about
true.
you. You can reach out to those contacts, those wonderful relationships that you've made throughout your career, and those can help propel you into loads of other things. So really,
Oh,
never
of
discount those
course. Yeah.
relationships.
No, exactly. Agreed. 100% agree with you.
Wonderful. And then one more thing in your intro that you mentioned your visa, and I think the visa situation in the States particularly can be a bit tricky because a lot of people I
Yes.
think that look, I need to marry someone, and look,
Yeah.
if you legitimately want to marry someone, do that. Don't fraud the
Yes.
system. That is a very, very, very bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. Agreed.
to know that the O1 visa even exists, and specifically with the O1 that does bind you to only doing performance work, but
Yes.
it is something that is out there that exists that you can apply for, and
Yeah.
you really can open up the entire US market if that's something you want to do and you're not from the US. Yes, it's time consuming. Yes, it's a pain in the butt to do, but it is a possibility, and to know that is massive.
Yeah. No, agreed. Like I said, again, when I was looking into this, there was so many visas, like so many, and the explanations of each one. And actually, one of my friends from ships, he'd actually wrote a referral for a singer that was trying to get the O1. So that's how I found out about it. He said, "Why don't you try and apply for this O1 visa?" And I did my research. I found a company out in LA. The guy that owns the company is actually from England originally and moved out there. So I got in touch with them. They helped me with both my visas. And it's not like you can just apply for a visa, be granted, and hop on over. You had to have a potential job offer. Now that's a hard thing, and I've known a lot of people that have come to the States with some sort of working visa in hopes to get an O1, but no one in Vegas, and I don't know about any other state, will hire you if you don't have a visa already.
Exactly.
So it's a very like catch 22 hard thing to get a potential job offer from somebody, but yet you don't have a visa to come into the States and do the job. So I was lucky being able to get the job offer that enabled me to be able to proceed with the O1 visa and come over. Unfortunately, I didn't do the job because by the time the visa had come through, the job had already ended. That's how long it took. But they still acknowledged that I'd been given an offer by an American company.
Yeah, wonderful.
So yeah, it was long and stressful. If you are determined to do it, go ahead and do it. Just be prepared that it's a long, grueling couple. I mean, now I don't even know how long it's going to be now for anyone to get a visa with the way the
Yes,
situation
everything's
of
very kind of up in the air right now.
everything is. So yeah, but if you want to do it, go do it. It was the best thing I ever did.
Wonderful, beautiful. That's
Yeah.
such good advice. And
Hmm.
let's move on to this next section here. And Chelsea, look, I'm a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you want to share with everyone?
This was a tough one. I'm not going to lie. This question, it seems easy, but it was pretty hard because I mean, you go through social media and you see a bunch of quotes every single day and you're like, "Oh yeah, that's good." But one that actually like kind of resonates with you and really hits, I would have say I do go by everything happens for a reason.
Hmm.
I truly do believe that everything happens for a reason. You may not think it in the moment, but looking back on my career, there has been moments where in that situation I was like, "What? This is it. Like, what am I doing?" Like, but now I look back and I was like, "That happened because it was opening a door for this to happen." So I truly do believe everything happens for a reason. And then I did see another one the other day, and it's someone will always be better and stronger than you, but the fact is they will never be you. And
I
I
love
think in
that.
our career, that is a really good quote because, again, especially with this lockdown and the whole COVID thing, a lot of people have been turning to social media. And, people are posting their workouts, they're posting this, they're posting that. And even just before all of that, social media can be such a good thing and a bad thing. It can be a good thing to let people know what you're doing because you're happy about something. But there's people sat at the other end looking at that and being envious that their body doesn't look like that. They don't sing like that. They're not as tall as that. So I feel like, yeah, there is always going to be someone bigger, better, stronger than you, but they are not you, and what you have to offer and what you have to bring to an audition, to a cast, to a show, that's special to you. No one can replace that and no one can take that away from you. So that's something that I feel like people always need to home back into, because we get so wrapped up with what everybody else is doing. And it's like, oh, well, she did 5 workouts today and I haven't done any. I've sat on the couch,
Yeah.
but you have something that she can't offer or he can't offer. And I think it's just I thought it was a really good quote to stand by.
Yeah, I love that quote, and you are so right. And the Instagram rabbit hole is a real thing, and you have
Yes,
to be
it
careful
is.
with it. And if you really, honestly, if you really truly are going through that binge session on Instagram, and you
Yep.
and you start feeling not very good about yourself,
Turn it
take a
off.
second to
Turn
recognize
it
that, yeah,
off.
and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
walk away from it because you're not doing any favors for yourself.
No. Mm-mm. I agree 100%.
Right.
100%.
Well, let's move on to this next section here. And Chelsea, of course, you are an entertainer. I am an entertainer, and I think that you'd agree this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, and personally emotional
Indeed.
industries we know. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there is an outrageous amount of fun doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, failures we are going to have to endure and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Okay, so one challenge, we've already mentioned it. I would say the O1 visa was
Hmm.
definitely a challenge. The first time around, obviously, because I wasn't in the States and I was doing the visa, I actually started doing it all whilst I was on a cruise ship. And I remember going to the photo gallery on the cruise ship and printing off 1,000 photos, and I would have to write on the back where this photo was, what date it was, what I was doing, as all of this evidence. So that was a really big challenge. And just like with my lawyers, the company that I was going through being in the States and me being England, the time difference of trying to connect and make sure we had everything and everything was done correctly. But then when I came here the second time, because I actually had the O1 visa twice. I didn't do it just once. I then renewed it for another 3 years. So the second time was even worse. I'd been here for 3 years. I would say I'd pretty much established myself as a dancer in Vegas of
Yeah.
who I was. I'd done a handful of things that I was proud of and that I would consider accomplishments. But when I was gathering all this information for my O1 visa, and I ended up actually getting, it's called an RFE, which is a request for further evidence. Once you've sent your packet in, they can send it back and be like, we need more.
Yeah.
And that's what I got. And I felt so disheartened. I was like, but I have literally given you a binder full of my career, my life, and yet you still don't think it's good enough. So that was a real challenge the second time around trying to get that second visa, because I was like, well, what else am I supposed to pull out? I've literally given you everything that I could possibly give you. And you're still telling, and it just, I mean, they weren't saying I wasn't good enough, but that's what it made you feel like.
Right.
You felt defeated. You put all this hard work in, getting it all to be sent back and be like, we want more. And I was like, but I have nothing to give you. Like, what do I give you?
Right.
So that was really tough. And, figured that out. And then I would say a obstacle that I've had during my career is I actually, whilst I was on cruise ships, it was actually my first cruise ship contract with celebrity. I actually had an accident on the ship and I fell off the trapeze whilst we were in a technical rehearsal.
Hmm.
So I probably fell about 20 feet from the air. And yeah, so that was an obstacle coming back from that. I honestly thought I had broken my hip. I thought I was done. So I thought my career's done. I was 21. I was like, this is it. Hip replacement at 21. Great. not going to be able to dance ever again. Luckily, someone was watching over me, and I say only, it was still pretty bad. I broke my wrist. So, I mean, that's bad, but it could have been a lot worse. So
Yeah.
that was an obstacle coming back because I got sent home from my contract early. So I didn't get to finish my first celebrity cruise line contract with the rest of my cast. I had to go home. I came back to England and it was snowing in England. So, trying to maneuver around with a broken arm on. And if anyone that's been to England when it snows, it's not like beautiful powder snow. It becomes, like ice and slush.
Yep.
So trying to maneuver around with one arm wrapped up, like trying to figure out. And yeah, I just remember coming home. But I mean, my mom has always been like my biggest cheerleader, but she's always kind of been cruel to be kind. She never really wrapped me up in cotton wool, and that in that sense, I came home and she gave me a couple of days to mope about myself, and then she was like, you know what, get back up, figure it out. So I was going back to dance classes with a cast on, and I remember getting the cast off, and they told me it might be like six months till you can go back. I was back on trapeze within 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
Fantastic.
probably shouldn't have been, but I was. But again, at 21, 22, you do recover a lot quicker than what you do as you get older. But looking back, I was like, God, I was crazy to go do that and come back that quick. But hey, I did it. And I didn't honestly, when I went to my second contract that fast, I didn't know if I was going to be terrified getting back up on the trapeze.
Right.
My mom said, fly out, go into rehearsals. If you can't do it, you come home. It's fine. But you won't know until you step back on that trapeze and go up in the air if you can do it or not. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad she gave me a kick up the butt and told me to just carry on, keep going.
I love it. Well, let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Again, this was another tough one because I feel like I've always wanted to be a performer or a dancer. I mean, I started dancing when I was 2. My mom just took me to a class, as every mother does when the children are young, just to see if they have a hobby or catch on to something to keep them occupied. And I took to dance and basically never looked back and would always want to go to dance, didn't want to do anything else. So I can't remember. I don't think I have a certain time where I was like, this is what I want to do. I've had a lot of moments, either it be on gigs or in shows, where I've literally been on stage and I've looked out and been like, wow, this is what I do for a living. So I guess, they can kind of, collide and kind of be the same thing. For instance, doing my first show, Vegas the Show, I came out for the finale and we were stood at the top of the stairs and I was like, this is what I'm doing right now. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's kind of a spotlight moment in a sense. I was already doing it, but it just hit back home again that I was like, wow, this is it. This is my life. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I love those realization moments. And I want to piggyback on that real quick and talk about
Yep.
your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Okay. I have 2 booked it moments. Is that
Great,
okay?
of course.
Okay. So my first booked it moment, I had probably been in Vegas. Oh God, I think maybe, I don't even know if it was a year. Maybe a year, maybe not. I think I was in Marshalls because I have a slight obsession with going to Marshalls and Home Goods. And it was like a Saturday afternoon. I was in Marshalls. I actually think I was trying something on, and I get a phone call. I answer it, and I remember he asked me, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm in Marshalls." And he was like, "Well, what do you have anything planned this weekend?" And I said, "No. Why should I?" Like, kind of like
Yeah.
confused, like, "Why are you asking?" And he was like, "Do you want to be on the billboards?" I was like, "Excuse me?" And he said, "Do you want to dance on the Billboard Awards?" And I was like, "Yeah." who wouldn't?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, can you be at MGM by 6 a.m. tomorrow morning in full hair and makeup? I said, yeah, of course I can. I didn't know really who I was dancing for, what I was doing. I was like, yeah, I'll be there. I remember like getting the information that night, and I'm not big on country music. I obviously know them now because they've grown a lot bigger as a group, but it was actually for Florida Georgia Line
Oh,
is who
wow.
I was dancing for. But at the time, like I don't think they were as big as what they are now. And I didn't know. And I remember coming home and telling my husband, and he was like, are you serious? And I said, yeah. So anyway, I went and did it. We were there at 6 a.m. It was obviously pre-recorded for, well, we did it live for the East Coast, but my booked it moment was actually coming home from the day and actually getting to watch it on TV. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow. So I guess that's kind of a spotlight moment going back to. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. And yeah, it was such a great feeling. So I was very fortunate and very lucky. That's still one of my favorite booked it moments. And then obviously my next booked it moment, this is a big one too. I auditioned for Vegas a show, not one time, not two times, actually six times before I got into the show.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And looking back at those times, every time I would make it down to the final cut, felt like they liked me or felt like I'd done really well, but then never heard anything. And I was like, you go home and you're questioning yourself and you're like, why did she get kept, or why did they not call me, and so forth. And I would keep going to the audition, and to the point where the production manager at the time, Shannon, would know my name when I would walk in before I'd even give my resume and ask me how I was doing. I was like, this is awkward that he already knows who I am, but I'm not in the show. But I would still show up. And the last time I went to audition, I almost didn't go. I almost was like, they're not going to hire me again, whatever. But I was like, you know what? If I don't go, what if that was that one time they were looking for somebody, my height, my size, my hair color, my whatever? What
Yeah.
if that was that one time and I didn't go? And I said I would regret it for the rest of my life. So I went and I stood at the back because by this time I already knew the two combinations that they taught at the audition.
Yep.
And I always felt sometimes that I might have come off as like being at the front, and you try to not do the routine if you already know it, but sometimes you can't help but go ahead of what's being taught if you already know what's coming next. And I thought maybe that was going against me. So I stood at the back, didn't come to the front, and basically just stood there until we got put into groups and then just did my thing. And I felt pretty good about it again, as I'd done like the other times, and didn't hear anything. So this was round 6, didn't hear anything. And again, defeated. I was questioning myself, like, what am I doing wrong? What am I not doing? Am I being too much of a perfectionist at the audition instead of just going with the flow and just, if I do mess up, I mess up rather than being so hard on myself.
Hmm.
But I picked myself back up, and actually I was getting ready to go to another audition somewhere else. And I was basically full face and makeup. I had my outfit on, and I was picking up my bag to go out the door. And I get a Facebook message from Shannon. And I have kept it to this day. I've never deleted the message. Just saying that they have an offer for me and could they call me.
Oh,
And now
wow.
I still think it's so hysterical because I was like, you have 6 resumes, but you Facebook messaged me. Do you know what I mean? Dropped my bag. I called him and he said, we have an offer for you. And before they even told me, I said, I'll take it. He said, I didn't even tell you what it was. I said, Shannon, I don't care. I said, I will take the job. Because I've been trying for that long. Like I'd wanted to be in the show for so long. And, and I was like, oh my God, hallelujah.
Yep.
So I was like, I'll take it. Whatever it is, I'll take it. I don't care. Even if I work one day a week, I'll come do it one day a week. It doesn't matter. So I went in that night and signed my contract, and I got hired as an on-call dancer to start off with. But I ended up, as a lot of people may know, with Vegas the show, on-calls and swings, we do a lot more than the average on-call or swing would do. So I was actually in the show quite a lot, which I loved. And from there, just worked my way up into the show, and I became full time, and then I became a swing. And you actually learn basically every track in the show, not just, one track, and you're still scheduled in. You don't sit and wait for somebody to go down
You're
before
right.
you go in. You're always in. And then yeah, so now I after being there for 4.5 years, I'm now back down to a on-call swing again. But like I said, I before COVID, I was still scheduled into the show 4, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's one of my, funnier bucket stories, just because I love that I got a Facebook message and I still have it and I still look at it from time to time. Because again, connections, you just don't know. It's not necessarily always going to be a phone call or an email that's going to get you that job,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a great moment too.
Wonderful. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects
Yes.
are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And look, it's a crazy time. We are amidst this global pandemic. How
Mm-hmm.
do you see the industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
So yeah, the interesting times, I 100% agree. Right now, I am just trying to focus on myself. And in the sense, not saying that I never not focused on myself, but we get so wrapped up in work and craziness that you never have a time to just sit and take a breath
Hmm.
and enjoy the quiet time, because quiet time for a lot of performers is like a day off or 2 days off, and then it's right back in, let's go.
Yep.
So yeah, when all of this started, I was like, oh, this is a nice vacation, and then the thumbs started to twiddle, and then I was like, okay, we got to do something. So I've been working out a lot, I guess you could say. I actually, with good old Mr. Sean T doing T25, I've basically been doing that for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
So I'm on my final week right now, and then I'll find some other workout program to do. I'm going over debating back and forth with myself about going into the fitness industry and getting into personal training. Obviously, with our career, fitness is always going to be a big important role. And I do like, there's times where I hate working out. We all do. But I do have a love for it. Again, I do teach at True Fusion already. So I teach hot bar, which stems from ballet, which is great for me. And I am certified in Pilates with True Fusion. So I thought about going into the fitness industry, but I'm still debating back and forth whether I want to do group stuff or if I want to be more one on one. So that's kind of what I'm doing with my time right now.
Perfect. And let's move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them
Got
as
it?
quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I'm going to say nothing was holding me back, but sometimes I feel like being a perfectionist can be a hindrance, because sometimes being too perfect doesn't always work and it can backfire. So I would say, if that's the thing, trying to be too perfect.
Great. Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Ooh, again, this is a tough one. You pick some tough questions. I I would say best piece of advice is that I have been given, you have to start at the bottom to get to the top. And that's something that I have always lived by.
Wonderful. And the third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
So before COVID, I would say I was I'd start, not that saying I had never enjoyed my career, but I've come to an age where I have learned to care less about what other people think about me and just focus on myself. And if it makes me happy, then do it. I spent so much of my life, I feel like in my 20s, being like, well, does she like what I'm doing? Does he like what I'm doing? Like, is this right? And I've finally learned in my 30s to just let that go and just enjoy whatever you're doing. And I feel like it's made my enjoyment for my career just expel even more than what it already had.
Yeah, I love that. And the fourth question, what is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, podcast, maybe a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now.
I would say YouTube has been pretty good just for helping me with workouts as well as like downloading fitness apps.
Hmm.
I've actually been taking actually since dance classes and studios have opened back up, I've been able to go take dance class again. And that's something I was never really able to do when I was a full-time working dancer because all the better classes I felt like were in the evening and I would always be working. So
Yeah.
now I'm really trying to take the classes and I'm gonna plug you. I'm gonna say these podcasts. These podcasts have actually been really good for me
Oh,
because
thank you
I
so much.
it's always so nice to, like I said, to learn about other people's experiences, about how they had to grind to get to where they are. And like I said, you've interviewed a lot of Vegas entertainers, and it's always interesting to find out how we all got to the same place because we
Yeah.
all come from different aspects. And they've been really informative for me for someone who's already had a career. So I've really enjoyed listening to the podcasts.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that.
Of course.
And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
I honestly, like I said, everything happens for a reason. So I'm not gonna. I would say I would keep my career. I wouldn't change anything. The one thing I would add to it, knowing the information I know now, if I'd known that when I was younger, and my mom said it too, I would have gone into singing lessons. I would have took vocal lessons a lot younger. I took them when I was 16 at college, but I wasn't interested. I just wanted to dance. I didn't want to do the vocal classes, and that's why I don't sing. And it's my own fault. I should have taken them a little more seriously, but I just wanted to dance. That was it. So now I would say take vocal lessons too.
Absolutely. Learn as much as you possibly can.
Yes, yes, yes,
Great.
yes.
Last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you have learned from your successful career in this industry you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I am going to say it sounds cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. Don't give up because there's been so many times in my career that there was where example, I didn't give up on Vegas the show. And finally, they took me in. I could have given up the second time, the third time, and called it a day. But I kept going because I told myself I'm going to keep going to these auditions till they tell me to stop coming. That's literally how I was thinking. So I would say that. And then I would say just don't be afraid to put the work in and work your way up to the top. At the time, being at the bottom might seem terrible, it might seem mediocre, whatever, but just know that all that hard work you put in, you will get to the top because if you start off at the top, the only way to go is down. That's how I've always thought. If you come in right at the top, you're only going to fall. But if you come in at the bottom, you're going to work your way up to the top and you appreciate everything you go through. I would just, that's one of my biggest things. But also stay humble. There's a lot of people in this industry that aren't so humble, and it's not a nice trait when you come across somebody that isn't very humble about what they've done. We've all had a career. We've all had different stories. Someone's done this. Well, I've done that. Just appreciate what everybody's done. We all have different stories to tell. And yep, just stay kind to everybody because you don't know where that next connection is coming from. And it's just as important with the connections as it is if you can do 500 pirouettes.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And to wrap up this interview, Chelsea, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How
Okay.
do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Chelsea Dee 87. Chelsea Dee Robinson is my Facebook. And if you ever want to come to True Fusion in Summerlin, just check out the schedule. I'll be teaching hot bar on normally Tuesday mornings and Wednesday evenings.
Beautiful. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything Chelsea just said in the description of this episode. Chelsea, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.